What's up, everybody? It's Defending the Boys. I am your host, D. Will, and I was on a draft simulator, just a random one online. And when the first pick came, I was like, man, I wonder what we need the most. Do we need cornerbacks, safeties, edge, or linebacker the most? Because we need all of them. We don't have but 2 first-round picks. So I decided, hey, let's have a conversation about where we really are with our defensive secondary. We're gonna have that conversation right now.
They are an accident waiting to happen.
Stephen A, hush your mouth, talking all that noise. You can hate all you want, but we still them boys. Dirty D, Texas where we stay at. We inside in order till you know that's where we play at. Hey, this year, this the payback. Yeah, we them Cowboys, and nah, we don't play that. Work. This is Cowboy Nation. Work. Welcome to Cowboy Nation. Work. Y'all can keep on hate. Work.
Cowboys Nation, Cowboys Nation, Cowboys Nation. Talking today about our defensive secondary. This episode is brought to you by the car wreck attorneys at Oh I'm Hit. If you've ever been hurt in a car accident, feel free to give them a call, 214-446-3887. Again, that's 214-446-3887. Best in the game, I can promise you that, all right? So we were just having a little bit of a conversation, right? We were with some friends, and they was like, man, D. Will, I want you to do this simulation with us, right? Just a draft simulation. And then I got into a conversation about what we really needed the most, because, you know, if you take a linebacker and an edge, somebody says, man, but now you to have to wait on a secondary player in the 4th round. And are you really going to get somebody in the 4th round that you like as a cornerback? But then if you take a cornerback and a linebacker, let's just say, then now where's your edge coming from? And, you know, we need a lot of stuff, and we don't have a lot of picks. We need 4 first-round picks. That's what we need, 4 first-round picks. We don't have that. I'm not really sure that we got anything that we want to give up that would give us that, right? But here's the thing. I want to have a conversation about the secondary, right? Just so we can get a feel of where the Cowboys feel they were. I will say something right off the bat that nobody's going to like for me to say. Nobody likes to hear this, but Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker are not the worst safeties in the NFL. I'm sorry, guys. I know you would like to just say, because, you know, as Cowboys fans, we're really, really big about everything is either the best or it's the worst. Now, what we had that was the worst defense. We had that. That was the worst. That was not an over-exaggeration. Our defense is the worst defense in the league last year. And the cornerbacks were, the entire secondary were a huge part of that. Absolutely. But the worst secondary in the league, no, they were just the worst defense in the league. Simply because even though they gave up most passing yards in the league, I still don't think that our safeties are the worst. Now, in pass coverage, they're definitely towards the end, maybe, and especially following the lead of Eberflus. But I find it rather difficult to believe that, you know, somebody who was middle of the road the year before goes to the worst if it doesn't have something to do with the way that they were being coached, right? So I do feel like under the right coaching, Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson are not the worst safeties in the league. That's how I feel. Okay, so I know everybody doesn't agree with that. I'm not saying that they're the best. I'm not saying that they're top 10. Not even saying that they're middle of the road. I'm just simply saying they're not the worst in the league. That's all I'm saying, right? With that being said, I still don't know if we'll be able to keep both of them or if we should keep both of them. When you start to look at finances, I feel like you can get somebody just as good for a little bit cheaper than what you're paying them. And if that means only getting rid of one of them, getting rid of 2 of them, yada, yada, yada. But they're not the worst, right? And if you got rid of both of them, it almost insinuates that you have a safety that you either already know that you're going to get in free agency, or you feel like there's a couple of them in the draft that you're going to go get. Caleb Downs probably not going to be at 12, but maybe, right? Um, and if you got Caleb Downs, one of them got to get cut. Like, you're not paying that much money for somebody to sit on the bench, and he's definitely playing. So again, if they think he's going to slide, maybe you get rid of one of them. I don't know, but the cornerback room, we have a glaring hole. Like, outside of the fact that nobody played well, again, I feel like some of that is coaching. So I feel like Al Harris personal babying players and not getting along with Schottenheimer. If you take that away, right? If Al Harris was coaching our defensive secondaries, I feel like our secondaries would have played at least middle of the road. I'm not saying they would have been the best. I mean, if you really look at it, like, we knew who Nashawn Wright was before he left, and now playing for Chicago, it seems like he's one of the better cornerbacks in the league. So again, I feel like this is a situation where, hey, you put the right coaching in place, and we have at least some middle of the road cornerbacks, but none of them played well last year, right? But even if, let's just assume, I'm gonna make some assumptions that I don't even really agree with, but let's just assume Deron Bland was never really healthy all season, and so maybe he gets a little bit better now that he gets a full offseason, some rest, a year removed from the injury, yada, 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 even though he got another injury, but whatever. Let's just assume that he gets better, right? Let's assume that Siobhan Ravel plays average on the outside now that he's actually going to get. And I do feel like this. I feel like with Siobhan Ravel being able to get a full offseason into a system that should be better than the one that they had before, I feel like he's going to play a lot better, right? Again, not saying he's going to be the number one cornerback in the league, none of that. I just feel like he'll be a serviceable outside corner. Deron Bland, assumption that he'll be a serviceable slot corner. I'm up in the air about that one, but let's just assume that. Even with that, you still don't have anybody on the other side, right? Kalen Carson hasn't proved that he can do that, and there is an opportunity. I mean, if we're just going to, go out there on the limb and say, oh yeah, everybody can play better, so there's an opportunity Kalen Carson can play better, but you definitely need another cornerback on the other side, because it would be really scary to go into next year with Kalen Carson, Deron Bland, Siobhan Ravel, a bunch of rookies. Now, we have some players. I told you guys at the beginning of the year, I think that Reddy Stewart is a really good cornerback. Now, again, with the coaching that's there, Donovan Ezerako should have gotten more sacks, but I don't believe that the way that he was coached and the keys that he has to follow allowed him to get those sacks before. I think he'll do better. I know he's not a cornerback, but I'm just saying as an example. This is the same thing that I feel with the cornerbacks. I feel like these cornerbacks are going to play better in a better system, but I don't expect them to be great, right? So what I like about our cornerbacks currently is we have cornerbacks that don't mind tackling. I do like that. They'll come up and make a tackle, because that Trayvon Diggs didn't want to make not now tackle. That's not what he wanted to do. So I do like that part. But even from a most optimistic standpoint, you need a cornerback, right? And so if you do what most people are saying to do, you grab an edge, you grab a linebacker, you are literally looking at Kalen Carson, Siobhan Ravel, Deron Bland in the slot. And then you still have maybe Reddy Stewart and Bridges. I forgot his first name. I mean, you still got them. Yeah, you still got Josh Butler. I mean, you got some guys, but you don't have anybody that's proven, and you're guessing at, can one of those guys maybe play? Because even like Reddy Stewart, I've been saying that he was more of a kind of a slot guy. Yeah. Anyway, now I tell you who we may be slipping on a little bit. I really like Zion Childress, and I felt really upset that he had such a great camp. He had such a great off season, and then they brought in Reddy Stewart and the Traquez Bridges. They brought them in and just got rid of him. And I don't know, maybe that was a fluke thing. I don't know what it was, but it was like, man, the man played really, really good in the offseason only to be dumped. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know what they saw, but he's back on the team now. He's been basically given a spot into camp, hoping he has another great camp. And there's a possibility that we can do some things there. But even with all that optimism, I feel like we need to do some other stuff. I just don't feel like it's a situation where we can, I don't know. I just don't feel it. I don't feel like Deron Bland, Siobhan Ravel. I don't feel like these guys can really get the job done. Like I just don't see it. So now that means that possibly, maybe we need to go and get somebody else, right? Like maybe our first round draft pick possibly needs to be, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we'll get one of the better ones, but in the draft that I was doing, I told you we was playing around with the draft. Jamar McCoy was still available even at 16. So in this situation, I took a trade. This was just, again, playing around, right? I took a trade, and in that trade, I went from 12 to 16, and that gave me a third round pick. So I gave them 12 for the 16th pick, and I don't remember right now who was at 16. So sorry about that. But I gave them the 12th pick for the 16th pick, and then we also got a third round pick for that. And again, that was just something that the system generated. And I was like, yeah, we'll take that, because at 16, I mean, we need a little bit of everything. One of those positions that we need is going to be available. And then that's when I ended up grabbing Jamar McCoy. And I did it on purpose because I wanted to kind of see, well, now who's going to be available at 20. And so at 20, Sonny Styles was still there. So that gave me a linebacker and a cornerback with no edge. And I don't know, guys. I'm kind of liking the idea of a cornerback. I'm liking the idea of a cornerback and a linebacker, and then maybe, I don't know, Hendrickson, like maybe going out to him in free agency. I mean, he said he's going to break the bank. I mean, I've seen some cornerbacks that are okay, but I haven't seen a cornerback that I like as much as I like Hendrickson at edge, per se. So, yes, you could go after a cornerback in free agency, but I feel like an older edge is definitely better than an older cornerback, because you start to get slower. The wide receivers ain't getting no slower. So, so I'd rather have an older edge, because we've already shown from our older edge that we had this year, who ended up being our number one sack leader, right? I feel like that will get us a better situation than going to get an older cornerback. So I guess the current state of my cornerbacks right now would still be graded. I mean, I gave a lot of optimism, but let's be honest about it, right? The honesty is our secondary unit is probably going to grade out as a D at best, right? A D at best. They definitely are not passing, right? And that is still assuming that we don't have the worst two safeties out there. So I mean, if you're in the opinion that Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker are the two worst safeties in the league, which again I don't agree with, but if you are, then they definitely grade out as an F, right? I say that we grade out as a D simply because we really don't have three starting cornerbacks, right? We have two at best, right? assuming that Siobhan Ravel is going to do much better, or Revel, he's going to do much better next year with with the full off season and yada yada yada, right? So now we're going to assume that we really have 1.5. That's really what we have. We have 1.5 of our starting 3 cornerback needs. Yeah, that's not good. And so that leads me to think maybe it wasn't so bad to take Jermar McCoy, or maybe see who would have been available at 12 and get a better cornerback. I don't think Jermar McCoy is available at 20. Sonny Styles probably is. And if you can't get Sonny Styles, I say either Sonny Styles or CJ Allen is available at that point. And I've had a previous video. If you haven't already seen it, you can go back and watch the previous video that we had. Sonny Styles, CJ Allen. I'll take either one of those 2 guys. Right? I'll take either one of them. From an edges standpoint, I mean, you're not going to get Reese probably at 12, especially if you're talking, if you do get lucky enough, somebody wants to get 12 and you move down to like we did, a 16 or something like that, then you may not be able to get, some of the other edges that everybody's looking at. And honestly, I still feel like, and I know, Vach Lombardi desperately disagrees with me. I feel like TJ Parker is as good as any of the edges that's out there. And I know, again, he definitely disagrees with me. I watched his video. He doesn't feel like TJ Parker has a plan when he hits the field. But there's a lot wrong with all the edges. So I'm not saying that he's a perfect edge. I feel like he's as good as all the other edges. He's one of the better edges in this draft, other than, if you're looking at Reese being an edge. Other than that, they all have a little something wrong with them. There's not an edge that to me is out there that's the guaranteed winner. Guaranteed he's going to make a difference. I don't feel like there's an edge outside of Reese. Again, there's not an edge that's going to be there at 12. And Reese isn't really an edge, but let's just assume that that's where you're looking at putting him, right? I don't think any of them are guaranteed. I think they all have something that's wrong with them. So again, I feel like TJ Parker is just as good as any of those guys. So now if you got a TJ Parker or, any of the other guys that's out there with Bain or any of them, right? They all could possibly be great and could possibly not be great. Like Trey Hendrickson starts to look that much better. He starts to look that much better. You go out and you get him. Then you maybe get a cornerback and a linebacker in the first round. Now your defense is looking legitimately way better. Now you're talking about a defense that clearly was an F last year as a whole to probably at least being a C rating. And if we can try to keep as much of our offenses in place as we can, I mean, we could be in a decent situation. So I don't know. I'm just making the plea that, man, if you look at where we are with our defensive backs, we may need to look cornerback in the first round instead of waiting. That's just my opinion. This has been Defending the Boys. That's all I got for you. I am your host, ihearddwill. I'm out. Until next time.